This is a multi-time frame, right? So we have a 10-minute chart and a 5-minute chart. And what we're looking for are inside bars or inside candles. So when we get an inside bar on the 10-minute and the 5-minute chart, then depending on which way the market breaks, we're going to generate a signal in the direction that it looks like the market wants to break out to. So let's see if we can find some examples here. Should be pretty easy, yeah. All right, so that would be an inside bar. And this chart is the 5-minute chart. Right? There's another inside bar. All right, well, there's at least a couple there on my chart. All right, so basically, what is a inside bar, right? So basically, the first bar has to be larger than the second bar. Or another way of saying that, the current bar, is smaller than the previous bar. Yeah, like so. All right. Okay, so let's open up BloodHound and get to work here. So let me slide that over a little bit. All right, first thing we need to do is put in today's file name for the workshop. So let's hit the change button, save that. All right, so now that we have a file name here, all of our work will get saved. So next step is I'm going to start working on the logic tab here and work on the logic board. So let's start a new logic template. All right, so there's a name for, basically this idea here. So you'll notice I put the word default and 10-minute, right? So, let's talk about the word default, So the question is, we want to find a inside bar on the 10-minute and the 5-minute. So my chart, the chart that BloodHound's running on is a 5-minute chart, which, so the chart is the default time frame, right? So, so this, this pattern, the 5-minute time frame can be changed. So that's why I didn't say 5-minute, because it's not going to be locked to the 5-minute chart. If somebody runs this BloodHound template, on a 1-minute chart, then it's going to be the 1-minute and the 10-minute time frame, right? So whatever the chart is changed to, right, then that's going to change the time frames that this BloodHound system is running on, right? So if someone changes this to a 3-minute, right, then it's going to be the 3-minute and a 10-minute chart, right? So the default here, also, if we look at the solvers tab, right, the default time frame cannot be changed, right? Within BloodHound, the default time frame is, it's locked to whatever the chart is, right? So if it basically, the default is locked to whatever chart BloodHound is running on. All right. So if BloodHound was running on a tick chart, then the default time frame becomes the tick chart, right? So therefore, this would be a tick chart and 10-minute time frame, right? So, all right. So that's kind of the meaning behind default. I'll just put the word chart in there just to kind of help clarify there. All right, so now let's start doing, these price comparisons here, right? So the inside bar, right, the high needs to be less than the previous bar's high. So let's do this. So let's grab a comparison solver. Connect that in. Okay, so my naming here, I just abbreviated, high name there. Actually, a lot of people just use a capital H. And then I have in brackets 0. So that's kind of a programming term, right? So a bracket 0 means the current bar. And so we want the high of the current bar to be less, right, to be less than the high price of, and we use a bracket number 1. So a bracket number 1 means 1 bar back, right, or 1 bar behind, right? So we're comparing the high of the current bar to the high of the previous bar, and we want the current bar to be less than the previous bar. So for our inputs, we should have kind of know by now that we want price as our inputs. So let's change input A and input B to price. And the prices that we want to monitor are the high price. And we're going to put the high price in there twice. And for input B, we're also going to put the high price. Now for input B, we're going to change the look back period to 2. All right, because we want to look back 1 extra bar, right? So input A is going to be the current bar. So a look back period of 1 is the current bar, right? So a look back period of 2 would be the previous bar back. And for the outputs here, we don't want A to be greater than B, right? As I put in the name, we want A to be less than B. So this is the output that we want. So I'm going to turn the long output off here and use the short, or use the A less than B output there. And so what this has done is, right, if you look at BloodHound, right, we're getting a long and a short output. So an inside bar is non-directional. It's just an inside bar. Doesn't tell you if the market's going to go up or down. It just means that the market consolidated for 1 bar, right? So it's non-directional. So we want to generate a long and a short output on conditions that are non-directional. So here we can see everywhere that the high price is less than the previous bar's high, right there as well. And of course, if the high price goes higher, then there's no output, right? So there's no output there, no output there, right? So, okay, so there's half of the inside bar pattern looking at the high prices. And so now we just need the same thing, but looking at the low prices, right? So let's grab another comparison solver. Hook that in, and we'll put a name in here. Okay, so this time the current bar low, the low needs to be greater than the previous bar's low, right? So now we can just kind of go through and set these inputs up a little bit faster. There, right? So input A is the low price of the current bar, right? Look back period of 1 is the current bar. Input B is also the low price with a look back period of 2. But this time we want A to be greater than B, right? We want the current bar low to be higher or greater than the previous bar's low. So now I need to adjust my short output so that we're using A greater than B. Right. So there we go. Okay, so now we can see if the current low is greater than the previous low. We're getting a long and a short output there. Right. So if the low is lower, then there's no output, right? Every time the low goes lower, there's no output. So, right, as long as the low price is rising, then we're getting an output. So there is our pattern. So the next step is to grab a AND node and connect these two up. And there we have it. Yeah, look at that. All right, so right there where I found it. Oh, we even have an inside pattern right there. Yep. And yeah, there's some more inside bars as well. Right. So now if we wanted to, we could add a minimum kind of bar length, right? So if, say, for some reason that these small candles should need to be filtered out for whatever reason, if we want to filter out those small candles, we can do that so that only the larger candles generate a signal. We could do that by adding a bar length solver here, so we can make sure that there is a minimum bar length involved here. So maybe the maybe the engulfing bar needs to be a minimum size to the inside bar, something like that. So if we hook this up here, let's hook this up, and let's see what would be. Yeah, let me just do something like a 2 ATR. We'll set the, I guess, the standard a little high there. Let's see, now we don't need to change the mode. So if we're looking for, we're looking for bars, at or above, actually it's supposed to be 2 ATRs, right? That should say 2 ATRs. So if your machine doesn't update when you change the range, so some computers do, some don't. My computer used to update automatically, instantly, but I don't know, I think a Windows update affected it. So if this text in here for the output doesn't update, then just click off the solver, click off, and then click back on the solver. And so now you can see in the output here, it says at or above 2 ATRs, right? So now it matches, my settings in there. So we're looking for candles, right, that are at or above 2 ATRs. So, and yeah, so there we can see they're all being marked. Now, if we want it to be, the previous bar, which would be the engulfing bar, right? So we want it to be, so on our pattern, if we want it to be the previous bar here, right, that's going to be one bar back, or the previous bar. So what we would need is a look back node here. Like so. And what that does is, so let's say, this inside bar is the current bar just formed. So it's going to take the previous, the previous bar's length and shift that output onto the current bar, right? That's what the look back's going to do, is using the displacement, right? It takes the output from our solver and shifts it forward one bar, right? So if we look at this, so let's look at that pattern. All right, so there's our two patterns. So if I hook in this bar length requirement, oh, oops, hold on, let me correct the name there. There we go. Okay, so if I hook in or connect up the look back here into the AND node, there. So this little tiny, this smaller, inside bar pattern, the signal for it disappeared. And there we go. So we're left now with the signals, right, from, the larger candle or the larger bar inside pattern there. Yeah, so that's an extra option there. But let me just disconnect that for now. And so on this look back node, what I'm using is the displacement function here, right? Displacement, right? That's a NinjaTrader function. If you look on all your indicators, all of your indicators have this displacement setting. Every NinjaTrader indicator has this displacement setting, right? And all it does is it shifts the indicator's output forward however many bars you type in there. So with a value of 1, it means shift your indicator value forward by 1 bar, 1 extra bar, right? So that's how we take a previous bar's information and then shift it forward 1 bar, move it forward in time. So I'm going to name this look back node to displacement 1 there. So just a little abbreviation for it. All right. Well, so there is our inside bar pattern on the default time frame, right? That's on the default time frame. So next, we need to just repeat this, but on the 10-minute time frame. So let's switch over to the solvers tab here, and we need to add a 10-minute chart, right? So let's hit the chart button there, and then we can put in 10 minutes right there. So now we just created a 10-minute time frame or a 10-minute chart to work on. So now when you add extra time frames, NinjaTrader requires a reload of the chart. So if you look at the output here, BloodHound's giving us a little warning here, that hey, we need to reload the chart so that NinjaTrader can build that 10-minute time frame. So let's just go and here, let me do this. Let me close BloodHound and let me reload NinjaScript, or you can just do an F5 on your chart. Okay, so now BloodHound has the 10-minute chart, and you can tell here. So BloodHound provides a lot of good extra information here. So we can see that BloodHound is running on a 5-minute chart or has a 5-minute time frame. Obviously from the chart, so that 5 minutes comes from the 5-minute chart that BloodHound's running on. But then it also has a 10-minute time frame inside of it as well. So you can, so BloodHound's going to give you all that information there in the name, right? In the name. So, and we can also see obviously what instrument it's running on too. So also what BloodHound will tell you is the calculate mode, right? So you see the OBC, that's on bar close. So that is the calculate mode that BloodHound is running in. And so the calculate mode is, if we open up our indicators list, and let's see, let's click on BloodHound here, And right there, so this NinjaTrader setting called calculate is set to on bar close. All right, so there's two other options there, right? You can run your indicator on each tick or on price change, right? So that greatly affects how your indicator does its calculations there, right? And so BloodHound tells you which calculate mode you have it set to. So if you set BloodHound to on price change, right, then the letters will be, OPC for on price change. So, right, just a little, extra kind of feedback information there for you. So, all right. So yeah, let me cancel that. And let's clear that out. Shrink that back down. Okay, so now let's get back to wrapping this up here. So we have our 10-minute chart. So now we need to make a copy of these two comparison solvers and put them on the 10-minute chart. So let me copy the first one, and then I'm going to move it down, use the down button. And so now we can see it's now, this solver is now running on the 10-minute chart. So let's make a copy of the other one, right? The other comparison solver for the low prices. Let's make a copy of that and then move it down. So there we go. So we have a comparison solver for the high and low prices on the default time frame, and then, all right, comparison solvers of the high and low price on the 10-minute time frame. So now let's go to the logic tab, back to our logic board. Let's scroll this up a little bit. And so now let's add those new solvers that we just made. So we're going to go to existing nodes, and now we see a 10-minute time frame here. And so there's our two solvers. So let's add the first one. And then add the second one. There. And next, let's grab an AND node. Everything up. And then let's take a look at this first. And so here, what we can see is when there is a inside bar on the 10-minute chart. Yeah, if we look here, unfortunately, looking here, let's see when, so on the 10-minute chart, the 920 bar was a inside bar. So this was an inside bar right here on the 10-minute chart. And so unfortunately, right, our inside pattern on the 5-minute chart happened 10 minutes late. So we didn't quite get a correlation there between the 10-minute and the 5-minute time frame. So, but in any case, so we can look at the 10-minute chart if we want, but ultimately, all we need to do is we don't need two AND nodes. We can get rid of that second one and just connect up all of our solvers into one AND node like so. There we go. Connect that all up like that. There. And oh, look, there we go. So we actually do have a pattern that was found. Cool. All right, there we go. So there's our pattern. And again, I want to point out that we have a long and a short output, right? Because again, this is non-directional. If we look at, the directions here, it says, if the 5-minute candle breaks up on the next bar, then go long. And or if it breaks down, then go short, right? So what we can see here is that when we got the signal, we can see that actually the market, the next bar actually had broken down, right? So this would have turned into a short signal here, right? So we're not done yet, right? We need to identify the breaking up, or the breaking down portion of this, right? So that means that we're going to have to detect things in real time, right? So let's look at what the market's doing right now, right? So, if this was an inside bar, judging where the market was at, we'd say that, well, it looked like the market was going to break upward, right? But if the price keeps coming down, once the the market price gets within a certain range of our low, then we would say it looks like the market is going to break down, right? So what we can do is, if we're looking at the high and low prices of our bar, when the market, or the last price, NinjaTrader calls so wherever the market's currently printing at, NinjaTrader calls that the last price. Well, actually, the exchanges call it the last price as well. So that is the actual exchange terminology. Is the last price is the current, the last trade. The last traded price is the last price, right? So that's the current market. So if the last price gets within, X number of ticks, to the downside, right, to the low of the previous bar, well, then we would, judge that as, breaking down, right? But if the market, gets within X number of ticks of the high, right, then we would judge that as it looks like the market's going to break up. Okay. So, so using that kind of, or breaking everything down into small pieces, we now kind of have an understanding as to what we're looking for, right? We're looking for the last price to get within X number of ticks of either the low or the high when, let me scroll back here, right? So back here, when we have our inside bar on the 2 time frames, then when this bar was forming here, let's stretch that out. There we go. So when our bar in question, right, so this would be our signal bar. So when our signal bar was forming, when it started breaking down, then we would say it looks like the market's going to break to the downside, right? And so at that point, we want to generate a short signal. So we can see that we're not waiting for the market to close, or we're not waiting for the bar to close, sorry. Right? So this breaking down or breaking up is not waiting for the bar to close, right? If we did, then we wouldn't be able to do, this last requirement, which is, place an order, 1 penny, above or below, the bar high or low, right? So we can see go long 1 penny above the 5-minute inside bar high, right? So for a long, right, that would be placing an order 1 penny above the bar high. Okay. So we're going to need to change BloodHound's calculate mode. All right, so I'm going to open up BloodHound here. And let's open up BloodHound. And so that calculate does need to be changed to on price change. Right, so we need to monitor the current price. So we'll change it to on price change, like so. All right, so next step here, right, we have our signal on the inside bar, we have the inside bar detected, but the signal is going to be on the next bar, right? It's going to be the next bar. So we need to shift this, output here onto the next bar, which is actually the real signal bar, right? So again, we will need another look back node here, kind of like, exactly like what we did previously for this inside bar. So we're going to need another look back. Let's connect that in there. And we're using the displacement function here of 1 bar. So we're going to shift that signal over 1 bar. Right? So now the inside bar detection, right? So that's our inside bar. And so we took that signal from the inside bar and shifted it onto the actual signal bar. And so now we need to build a condition that identifies, if that last price gets within X number of ticks, of the low, then we're going to turn this into a short signal. But if the market moves up and that last price gets within X number of ticks to the high of the bar, then we're going to turn that into a long signal. So once again, we need another comparison solver. And of course, we're doing this on the 5-minute chart, right? So we're looking for price to move up and down on the 5-minute chart. So we need to use the default time frame. So we want a comparison solver on the default time frame. So let's grab a comparison solver right there. All right, so let's give this solver a name here. So as kind of mentioned, we're looking at the last price, and let's say if the last price gets within, I think 5 ticks is probably sufficient. You don't want to, depending on the speed of your computer and your internet connection and everything, you typically don't want to wait until the very last tick. So checking to see if the last price gets within 1 tick of the bar high or bar low. Probably your computer is not going to be fast enough to generate that signal, given how fast the markets move these days. The market can move 3 ticks in less than 1/10 of a second. Literally 3 ticks in less than 1/10 of a second. So don't ever think that you can use, NinjaTrader, or any of the charting platforms out there, to do any kind of high frequency, fast, kind of trading, systems like that. Basically the retail trading platforms, plus your data feed, plus a lot of people are using laptops for this stuff. All 3 combined means that, that you're just not going to generate a signal fast enough if you wait to the very last tick to try and generate a signal in real time, right? So giving yourself a 5-tick buffer should be a very safe bet. Again, it depends on a lot of factors, right? The speed of your computer, the speed of your data feed connection. There's something else, but in any case, just don't wait until the last tick or two to try and detect some kind of condition. Give your computer, ample extra number of ticks, to try and identify that condition there. So we're going to detect when that last price gets within 5 ticks of the high or the low price. Okay, so input A is price, and that is going to be the last price, right? So I put the last price in both, and for input B, that's also price, but this is going to be, so for a long signal, so when we generate a long signal, we're comparing the last price to the high, right? To the high of the previous bar, right? So our look back needs to be 2, so that we're using the high price, right, of the inside bar, which is going to be 1 bar back. And so for a short signal, well, we would compare the low price, we're comparing the last price to the low of the previous, right, inside bar, like so. And then our difference, we need to put our difference, which is 5 ticks here, right? 5 ticks there. So, all right, now for the outputs here, we're going to use when A equals B within 5 ticks. So that should say 5 ticks. Let me click off and let me click back on the solver there. So now it says when A equals B within 5 ticks. So that is the condition that we're looking for. So for a short output, same thing. When A, and remember, A is the last price, right? A is the last price. So when A equals B, B is the low of the bar, right? B is the low of the bar. So when the last price equals the low within 5 ticks, that is the condition that we're looking for a short. And we'll turn off those others there. So, and we can actually see, yeah, look at this. We can actually see that we are getting some outputs just from this one solver here. And the reason why is the close. So on historical bars, the closing price of that bar is also considered the last price of that bar, right? That was the close is the last printed price when that bar closed, right? So the last and the close are one and the same. And if you look, right, it is within 5 ticks of the low of the previous bar, right? So that's why we have a short on this bar, because the close or the last price is within 5 ticks of the low there. And same thing here, right? The close of the bar is within 5 ticks of the high of that previous bar, right? And so that's a long condition there. There. And actually, yeah, look, even down here, there. So that closing price is within 5 ticks, of the low of that bar. So, right. Yeah, so who knows? Maybe with the RTY, 5 ticks might be a little too large. For the RTY, I'm not too sure how volatile the RTY is. I don't think the RTY is all that volatile. So actually this is before the market open. So this is pre-market open. data, right? This is early morning data, so yeah, there's not going to be a lot of market movement. But yeah, here we go. So, if we look at RTH hours, yeah, we can see that there's a lot less conditions here where the close of the bar was within 5 ticks of the higher low. So yeah, so during trading hours, I think 5 ticks is probably a good distance to go with. So of course, you can adjust this 5 tick distance, based on the market volatility, and or the speed of your computer, things like that. So, all right. So we have basically our last little detection there. And the last step to do is grab another AND node. Connect that in. And there we have it. So the chances of us actually seeing any historical signals is pretty close to nil, right? As we know, the bar, on a historical bar, the closing price has to be within 5 ticks of the higher low in order to see that historical signal, right? So a lot of systems that operate or function in real time, usually you're not going to get historical signals from them. So, but let's take a look here. Let me close this out and let's see if there are any historical signals. Who knows? There might be a few. Oh, look at that. There are a few. Yeah, let's look at this long signal here. Now, of course, this is, in the middle of the night, and the bars are very small. Look, we even have this weird long and short because we have a doji, right? Little tiny doji, so that's obviously a doji gets engulfed, and then we have a close equaling the doji. So, so that gave us a long and a short at the same time there. Right? So obviously little tiny bars are going to give you some weird results there during the overnight session. But let's just kind of, analyze or double check this kind of long signal here. So this is definitely a inside bar. Right, so there's our inside bar, and that close probably is just barely within 5 ticks of the high to generate that long signal there. But what I want to do is let's pull up this extra chart that I keep handy here. And let's put a 10-minute chart on it. Let's see, yeah, they're both the RTY. All right, I'm going to turn on the global cursor there. Oh, there we go. There. So if we put our cursor on there, and yeah, there we go. Okay. So there is our inside bar on the 10-minute chart. And yeah, there you go. So you can see the dots, the green dots there synchronized. So so there we go. All right, a little bit of a back test there, or not back test, but verification, or confirmation of the higher time frame is also making a inside bar. So, all right. Well, with that, I think we're done. Let's see. Well, we are done with the BloodHound part, right? So we've generated the long and short signals in real time. And so, let's see. Yeah, we're not going to see anything in real time. So now that we have signals, we can now, tomorrow, we can take these signals and incorporate them into BlackBird, and then BlackBird can place, either that stop entry, right? So if we're going to place, a long order above the high, 1 penny above the high, right, then that would be a stop entry order. And yeah, right. It looks like, excuse me. It looks like this is probably for trading stocks, maybe, or oil. Yeah, either oil or stocks. So yeah, BlackBird will be, so once BlackBird gets a signal, then it'll place a stop entry order long 1 penny right above the inside bar high, or vice versa if it generates a short signal. So we'll do that part tomorrow in BlackBird. Okay, well, that does it for the first topic for today.